Former President Donald Trump anticipates being charged in Atlanta the following week. The nation's 45th president intensifies his attacks on DA Fani Willis' Fulton County Courthouse security is still tight. AP, Atlanta, in connection with a Georgia prosecutor's probe into the former president's attempts to reverse his state's 2020 election defeat, officials in Atlanta and the former president are preparing for a new indictment that could be announced as soon as next week. Pat Labat, the sheriff of Fulton County, has stated that he attends meetings every day to get ready for a potential indictment. His deputies put up barriers along the block in front of the main courthouse last week in anticipation of future accusations. This week, the street was closed, and parking is not permitted on neighboring streets. According to Labat's office, these measures will be in effect through the end of the next week. Trump has stated that he expects to face a fourth indictment before the end of the week and has increased his criticism of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who has been in charge of the investigation into Trump and his associates for the past 2 years. In a speech to supporters on Tuesday in New Hampshire, the Republican former president attacked Willis in a very personal way and referred to the 52-year-old black Democratic prosecutor as a young woman, a young racist in Atlanta. She has a lot of issues, but she wants to bring charges against me so I can try to run for another position, Trump stated. An attack ad against prosecutors who have looked at or sought charges against Trump was released by the Trump campaign. In an email sent to her team early on Wednesday, Willis informed them that a television advertisement scheduled to appear this week contains derogatory and false information about her and asked them not to reply in the media. The email states that you are not allowed to remark on the advertisement or any criticism that might be directed at me, your coworkers, or this office in the upcoming days, weeks, or months. We shouldn't convey any personal feelings towards the people we look into or prosecute. There is no chance that this will ever become personal. By the end of the current court term, which ends on September 1st, Willis anticipated to announce charging choices, she wrote in an April letter to law enforcement and local government authorities. She cautioned law enforcement to get ready for heightened security, stressing that the charges revelation may provoke a significant public reaction. A few weeks later, in a letter to the top judge of the County Superior Court, she appeared to further constrict that window. She requested that judges not schedule trials and in-person hearings during part of that time, particularly on the days when grand juries gather, and she made it clear that she planned to have a large portion of her staff work remotely for the majority of days during the first 3 weeks of August. 2 grand juries, one convening on Mondays and Tuesdays and the other on Thursdays and Fridays, were seated last month to serve through the end of the court term. It's improbable that either of those grand juries have had time to hear testimony in the election probe, given that they have both been routinely producing several indictments in criminal cases unrelated to Trump. Some people have speculated that an indictment would be announced this week as a result of the obvious security precautions. However, there's yet another strong indication that it's unlikely. The grand jury has subpoenaed at least one former lawmaker, but they have not yet instructed them to appear. Jen Jordan, a former state senator, was served with a subpoena that stated she would receive 48 hours' notice before her appearance, but as of Wednesday afternoon, she had not received that notice. An indictment is likely to be announced next week, since the window Willis gave the chief judge to act was expected to close on August 18, and the sheriff's traffic restrictions were scheduled to terminate at that time. If an indictment names Trump, it would be the 4th this year and the 2nd to highlight the former president's attempts to reverse his loss to Democrat Joe Biden in the 2016 presidential race. Prior to the tragic riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington acquired a 4-count indictment that focuses on Trump's attempts to rig the election and maintain power in the months before the November 2020 presidential election. That was the second charge that Jack Smith, a special counsel for the Justice Department, sought against Donald Trump. A federal grand jury in Florida produced an indictment in June that claimed that sensitive materials were handled improperly. Additionally, a grand jury in New York charged Trump in March on 34 counts of falsifying business documents to hide payments of hush money to a porn star during the 2016 presidential campaign. In all three cases, Trump has entered a not guilty plea and has aggressively attacked the prosecutors in speeches and on social media, accusing them of waging politically motivated charges against the undisputed frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024. A phone call made by Trump to fellow Republican and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger on January 2, 2021, served as the impetus for the Georgia probe. In order to defeat Biden in the state, Trump claimed he could find 11,780 votes with the assistance of the top elections officer in the state.